So today we're going to dive into a name that you hear all through the history of southern India, Mudaliyar. But who are they really? Are they a single community? Some kind of ruling class? Well, the answer is way more complex and honestly, a lot more fascinating than you might think. Let's get into it.
Okay, first things first. Mudaliyar is not the name of a single caste. It's actually a title, an honorific that ancient kings would give out. It literally means leader or the first one, a title for people in really important positions, like village heads, officials, and even army commanders.
So that raises a really crucial question, right? If it's a title that different groups could have, then who are the people who actually hold it today? This is where the story starts to get really interesting.
You see, the title of Mudaliyar is mostly associated with three major distinct communities, and each one has its own pretty unique history and traditional place in society.
So on one side, you have the Mudaliyars, who are historically these powerful landowners and agricultural chiefs. And on the other, you've got the Senguntars and the Senethalevers, both coming from this really formidable warrior tradition as military commanders.
Let's dig a little deeper into the Mudaliyars. In the ancient Tamil way of classifying land, they were the masters of the Marutham, basically the most fertile, valuable plains. For more than 600 years, especially during the height of the Chola Empire, their control over agriculture gave them massive political clout. You can even see this influence in the other titles they hold, like Pillai and Gounder.
Now check out the incredible story of the Senguntars. Their name literally means red spear. Legend has it they descend from 9 heroic commanders who were born from the gems of goddess Parvati's anklet. After they helped win a great celestial war, they promised Lord Shiva they would take up a peaceful profession. And so these elite warriors, they laid down their spears and became master weavers. What a pivot!
And rounding out the trio are the Senethalevars. Just like their name, which means leaders of the army, they were historic military commanders, mostly from the southern districts of Tamil Nadu. So again, we see that common thread of leadership. So we've got landowners and warriors. But in the 20th century, these separate groups came together to play this huge role in a movement that would completely change the politics of the entire region.
To really get why, you have to picture the early 1900s. Back then, getting into higher education or landing a government job was extremely difficult for anyone outside the Brahmin caste. I mean, think about this. You couldn't even study medicine unless you were proficient in Sanskrit. This situation created a real groundswell for change.
And things started moving, fast. In 1916, leaders from these communities helped create the Justice Party. Just 4 years later, by 1920, they were in power. And by 1928, they passed this landmark order, the Communal Government Order, which set up a system of reservation, kind of like affirmative action, to make sure jobs and education were open to all communities.
You know, this quote just perfectly captures what they were all about. It wasn't just about grabbing political power for themselves. It was about building a system that gave everyone a fair shot, a principle that is still so central to the region's politics today.
And their political influence was immense. I mean, the community produced at least 6 chief ministers for the state, including the absolute icon C.N. Annadurai, who founded the DMK party. It also includes amazing figures like Arcot Ramasamy Mudaliyar, who is the final Diwan, basically the prime minister of the powerful princely state of Mysore.
But it wasn't just about politics. The story of the Mudaliyar community is also like a masterclass in economic evolution. They didn't just adapt to change, they led it.
For centuries, their whole story was rooted in the land. All their economic and social power came from agriculture. They controlled these huge, fertile areas, and that gave them a stable and prominent position.
But, and this is the crucial part, they didn't stop there. When new opportunities showed up during the British era, they were some of the very first to pivot, turning all that agricultural wealth into industrial capital. So how'd they do it? Well, the Senguntars, for instance, took their ancestral weaving skills and just supercharged them, scaling up from handlooms to building enormous textile mills and export companies. They were a huge part of turning cities like Tirupur and Kenchaparm into the global textile powerhouses they are today. And from there, they branched out into all sorts of other industries. Today, their population just in the northern part of Tamil Nadu is estimated to be around 10 to 15 million people. Now, that's not just a demographic fact. It represents a huge economic and political force that is still shaping the state. But you know, perhaps their most lasting legacy, the pillar that really supports all their political, social, and economic success, is their deep, profound commitment to education.
See, for them, education was never just about getting ahead personally. They understood really early on that real progress meant lifting up the whole society, and they saw education as the main tool to do that. It was a social duty.
And they absolutely put their money where their mouth was. Individuals and community groups poured their wealth into building schools and colleges. The most famous example has to be Pachayapan Mudaliyar, who, way back in the 18th century, left his entire fortune to charity and education. The trust started in his name went on to establish Pachayapan's College, which is still one of Chennai's most important and historic landmarks of learning.
So, as we wrap this up, what are the big takeaways from this incredible story of transformation? What can the history of the Mudaliyars really teach us today?
Well, it really boils down to 3 core lessons. First, you have to adapt. They knew that to stay relevant, they had to shift from land to industry and, most importantly, to knowledge. Second, lead with purpose. Their power was a tool for social reform, not just for their own gain. And third, the foundational power of education, to build progress that lasts for generations.
Ultimately, the history of the Mudaliyars is just a powerful reminder that history isn't just about celebrating the past. It's about finding a guide for the future, a blueprint that shows how responsibility, adaptation, and a focus on community can create a legacy that lasts for centuries.